Hello everyone. Today I want to share an incredible journey of transformation in education. A journey that started in a typical classroom and led to something truly extraordinary. So it's the story of Esther Wojcicki, an educator who dared to challenge the status quo and reinvent what learning could be. So her TED Talk is a powerful reminder that true education is not about memorization or rigid tests. It's about giving students the freedom to explore, to fail, to succeed, and to ultimately find their own path. So let's dive into how this bold shift in thinking is changing the future of education, one classroom at a time. So, well, 32 years ago in Palo Alto, California, Esther was a regular English teacher, English journalist teacher in a regular classroom with 25 kids in the classroom, doing the regular thing. So, she taught 5 days a week, 5 periods a day, and gave a test on Friday. So, after 1 year of teaching, in Esther's story, realizing that things were not particularly effective, there were three choices. One was to quit, the second was to get a therapist, and the third was to throw out the curriculum and the book. So, since Esther was a non-tenured teacher, it was a bit of a risk to do any of those. So, the decision was made to throw out of the curriculum and the book, and then the expectations was to be fired. Well, actually, the administration never even noticed. So, what happened instead was that they did notice that within a 3 year period, the enrollment went from 19 students to 100. Like what was being done in the classroom. So, what was happening in the classroom was giving kids the opportunity in control their own learning, and the curriculum was made authentic. That made the difference a huge difference. However, today in schools everywhere, most kids have no control of their learning, and the curriculum is not authentic. In fact, they go to school and something called airplane mode happens. So that is, they walk in through metal detectors in many schools, no kidding, and then they sit down. Face forward for 7 hours, listen to lectures, and the school's out. So, and actually, that's when all the learning takes place. It's all take place after school. So Einstein said that learning is experience. Everything else, everything else, is just information. And so, what is being done today? As we are mainly lectured to kids on a regular basis, and the question has to be asked: actually, how effective is that? So most of the learning actually takes place outside of the classroom. In fact, 80% takes place out of the classroom. People learn by doing and by interacting. So, can you just imagine learning to ride a bike by reading a book about it? Or how about learning to code by watching somebody else to do it? So, those are some of the things that kids are being asked. Really, perhaps not riding a bike, but something similar. So, why is teaching still happening in the lecture mode and not in the doing mode? So, well, it's because it's really tough to change the culture. Teaching has been done like that for centuries, and it's really tough to change teacher behavior. So, what needs to happen is a change in the mindset of the classroom teacher, the mindset and the role of the classroom teacher. The goal is to move the teacher from basically the sage on the stage, which is being done right now, to the guide on the side. And it's tough to do. So, many teachers are struggling to do that now, but they get conflicting information from all the policymakers and from the community. What they are basically getting is, what would like to have all students have equal opportunity. Now with that comes standardized curriculum, scripted teaching, and intensified testing. That's what has been created. So the overemphasis on testing results in overstressed students, overstressed teachers, and kids that don't know how to do much of anything besides take tests. So they are really good at taking tests, but they are not innovative, they are not creative. So it's time for a major moonshot in education. And the goal is to move from basically, this is a typical classroom situation, to this model which is more collaborative. There are many examples of effective experimental learning, very hands-on learning, and one of them is the Google Science Fair. So Google Science Fairs actually encourage students from all over the world, thousands of them to submit their Google Science projects, and it prompts all kinds of experimental learning. It's pretty incredible. So last year, a 16-year-old girl from America won the top prize of creating a new and more effective test of Ebola. Incredible. So there are also first robotics programs all over that are really very effective. So today the question is like, what happened to the journalism program that started back then with 19 kids? Well, today it has become the biggest scholastic journalism program in the nation. It now has 600 students, 9 publications, and 5 other teachers. So they publish magazines, newspapers, radio, television, websites. They have programs that are led by the students. They come up with story ideas. They write about things that they care about. They are in charge. They edit the work. They create the designs and they get ads. They pay the bills. They do everything. It's all self-supporting. So what does the teacher do? The teacher is the coach, the guide on the side. The teacher does not run the show. So here is an example of the kind of work that the students do. And it takes first place in the nation from Columbia College Scholastic Press Association and the National Scholastic Press. As you can see, putting kids in charge of learning is really a kid magnet. It's freedom, trust, and responsibility. So we need to help teachers change. We need to help teachers see the authentic project-based learning is not only in the students' interest, it's in the teacher's interest. So it's much easier to oversee a project or projects than it is to prepare 5 hours of a lecture every day and then lecture to kids that don't really want to listen. So how do we get the time of teaching into the classroom every week? So the idea is to start a moonshoot movement now. Let students have a moonshoot Friday every week, once a week in every school everywhere. A regular recurring makers fair like environment where they can create and do projects, come up with their own ideas and work on things for 20% of the time. Just like Google's 20% time, let's incorporate a moonshoot database to share ideas and tools that they can use. Let's do it now. It's within our reach. We don't need additional communities. We don't need additional equipment. We don't need better buildings. We just need to take action. This suggestion is to start with the Moonshoot Friday movement and start it now. So, Esther's story is not just one of the personal growth. It's a call to action for all of us. It's remind us that education is not just about the lesson we teach. It's about the space we create for students to be curious, creative, and courageous. So let's challenge the traditional outdated systems and work together to build environment where students are in the driver's seat of their learning. Let's inspire a generation to not only pass tests but to solve real world problems, to innovate and to think critically. This moonshoot in education is possible if we start today. So let's make it happen together. Thank you so much.